over. Humanity paid a bitter price. Millions lost their lives and many more got incapacitated. Economies slowed down and people lost their jobs and incomes. It was a race against time, which put a lot of pressure on our nations and on the strategic alliances as well. It became also a vaccine race, and not only. It was a competition between major powers, primarily of the United States, European Union, United Kingdom, with countries like Russia and China. The Western Alliance was at the forefront of the vaccine production and distribution, but they were not the only ones. Russia and China proactively produced and exported their vaccines in countries which were in urgent need and under pressure for protecting their people, without prior certification from the international accredited institutions. Clearly, it was a move aiming at creating geostrategic advantages. The COVAX mechanism was created as an instrument to ensure a balanced distribution of valid vaccines to the countries in need. But we know now that COVAX was too slow to ensure a sufficient global supply of countries with vaccines. That is why nowadays there is a big gap among nations regarding the vaccine coverage and also among continents. That is why most likely, according to the World Health Organization, the pandemic will continue through the next year. The General Director of the World Health Organization was right in saying that the pandemics will end only when we decide altogether to put an end of it. We all know that the absence of a unified standard protocol for the control of the pandemic and certain contradicting and not well-founded measures created a perfect ground for the abuse of power, especially by autocrats and their regimes. The unnecessary show of force, sometimes with the presence of military structures, imposed unnecessary restrictions and freedom limitations on citizens. Senseless draconian measures, not scientifically supported, were put in place. Postponing of the elections and depriving people from the right of vote was put into the agenda of several autocrats in the name of the pandemic's control. It didn't help the pandemic's control at all. On the contrary, the countries which went after such measures experienced the highest number of infected people and casualties. Countries and politicians which carefully listened and followed the advices of science and research were much more efficient and successful in controlling the coronavirus. The purpose of the autocrats was not to efficiently control the coronavirus, but to install fear and crush civil society protests against the violation of constitutional rights imposed by them. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure that we learned a lot during these very difficult times. It will help us improve ourselves and do better in the future. Cooperation and solidarity counts the most. Science and research should prevail. Pandemics like COVID-19 are global challenges which can be addressed and controlled only globally. Therefore, joint mechanism of prevention and control of global epidemics should be created and be operative. COVAX was the first promising step, but it needs to be followed by other mechanisms and agreements in the early diagnosis of infectious agents. Stockpile vaccines from the rich countries need to be urgently sent to countries in need, especially in Africa and the Middle East, because considerable quantities are approaching their expired date. More funds are needed and should be allocated for research and production of vaccines and drugs. And this was also a commitment from G20, which also put the target of 40% of world population to be vaccinated until end of this year and 70% by the mid of the next year. And also One Health approach strategy will contribute to the control of the disease. Future pandemics cannot be excluded. Climate change as well as the global warming will surely accelerate the risk of global diseases. Therefore, we need to act now, and I'm sure that this conference will contribute to send the right message in the right direction and to increase the solidarity. And I want to thank very much Minister Di Maio and Minister Speranza for their vision, for their commitment, for the leadership of Italy, and also I want to thank in particular San Donato Group for this very inspiring moment, which gives hopes not only to one country but to many other countries in Africa and everywhere, that the best technology, the best expertise is going to be shared, and this event today is a demonstration of such will. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I know that Minister of Foreign Affairs of the State of Pakistan is here.